Hello, and welcome to the Flix Forum podcast, where each episode we go back and we look at a Netflix original film in the order of release. Today we have Netflix 90th film. It's the 2018 romantic comedy Alex Strangelove. It's directed by Craig Johnson. It stars Daniel Doheny, Antonio Marziale, Madeline Weinstein, I stuffed that up again, Joanna Adler, William Ragsdale, and Daniel Zolghardr. I'm Jesse, and as you can hear in the background, giggling away, we've got MJ here with me. How you doing?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. I love the fact that last week when you were introducing, saying, "Oh, look, next week we're doing Alex Strangelove," and you read out some casts. You sent me a text later on saying, "Oh, look, I was recording at home and it got really dark and I couldn't read the names properly." So that was your excuse as to why you couldn't get Weinstein correct, and then you've gone and done it again.
This week I've got no excuse. Woeful, but that's all right. So we have another rom-com. Seems like we've had a few of these recently.
Yeah, there's been a few at the
Yeah.
moment. We talk about it all the time that I think this is something that Netflix should be doing lots of because this is what people want to watch when they're sitting at home and they don't know what they want to watch and they don't want to think too hard and but they haven't got it right very very much. So it'd be interesting to see what we think of this one.
Ooh, seems like you're leading into a little bit of a spoiler alert. We will spoil this film
Cool,
as we
cool.
as we go, so I'll put that out there early. So if you want to watch the film, haven't seen it, go watch it because we're about to start with our fast flicks where we actually do our own little summary of the film. So MJ, what's your fast flicks for Alex Strangelove?
Yeah, cool. So I've got what starts off as a high school movie about losing your virginity turns very quickly into a story about a guy discovering his own sexuality and questioning whether he's actually straight.
Good. Yeah, you've gone into some good detail there about what's going on. As usual, mine's basic, and I just wanted to put it together in a line, and I just said it's a rom com about discovering who you truly are, and I know that doesn't give away much at all, or really really go into anything else, but I just liked that line.
Yeah, well, it's not wrong.
Hmm. All right. So, film history or anything that we've learned about this film. You're usually an expert in this area. What were we able to find out about Alex
um,
Strangelove?
I'm our expert at scouring Wikipedia and IMDb. Look, I found this quite interesting in the sense that Craig Johnson, who's the writer and director, um, basically had this film going for about 10 years. So it's partly autobiographical for him.
Hmm.
Obviously, the details of it change a little bit to make it into an interesting story, but he kind of had this incremental coming out process that, in his words, took him into his 20s. And he kind of had the idea of this roller coaster of sexual confusion being condensed into one senior year of high school. And he always had the idea to make it into a really fun, like a classic teen movie or a high school sex comedy, but with a
Hmm.
little bit more thoughtfulness behind it. So he started writing this back in 2008.
Oh
Um,
wow.
yeah, obviously being really close to the subject matter, and I think he punched out really quickly. And then throughout that time, he was trying to get the film made, and it took 10 years before he could actually do it. So throughout that 10 years, he continuously revisited his script, and a lot changed in the high school scene in 10 years, right, between 2008 and 2018. So he
Yeah.
kind of kept having to adapt to that. And then it got to a point, I think it was 2016, where Ben Stiller and his production company, Red Hour Films, decided to take on the film with Craig Johnson to direct it as well. Um, and then STX Entertainment came on as a distributor, but then they negotiated with Netflix, and then by April 2017, Netflix had acquired the distribution rights. XTX continued on as a production company, and then they cast Daniel Doheny as the lead role. So that was the most important role for them to fill, and they didn't want to fill anything until they could find a guy who basically you could believe was going through this same decision in his own mind: am I gay? Am I straight? Am I bi? And when they locked him down, they basically started filming or started principal photography a month later in May 2017. So it then had its world premiere at the San Francisco International Film Festival on April 14, 2018, so about a year later. And then it was released on Netflix on June the 8th. So it's kind of had a little fun journey, and I like this backstory.
I enjoyed just sitting back listening to you tell it that way because Yeah, I think it's fascinating. And uh, apart from what you've explained, that there's not an awful lot more that I like really could find out about this. And I saw like in the credits, I was like, Ben Stiller was involved. I was like, that's really
Mm.
really cool as well. And it's just I thought you did an exceptional job there of filling us, myself, and the audience in on how it was made. So
Yeah,
good
it's a
job,
cool
MJ.
story, and I love hearing things like as soon as a director says something like this is sort of based on my own story, or I've learned from my own experiences. You know that there's just a little bit more heart involved, and there's a little bit more truth involved, and there's probably a little bit more blood, sweat, and tears in it. So you're trying to write your own story, and obviously you're always going to change things because it's a fictional story. But and this is obviously something that I discovered after I'd watched the film. I had no idea about this prior to watching it.
Yeah.
So you do take a little bit more out of it. I think it's interesting that Netflix came on board because Craig Johnson was not worried, but he was pitching this movie to studios that were kind of like, hey, could you do this as a PG-13 movie? Because you do that, we'll finance it.
Mm.
And he was really big on the fact that it's about love and it's about sex, and you can't really talk about sex authentically if you're constrained by that PG-13 rating. So there was no other way he wanted to make it this way. And as we know at Netflix, they basically make up their own rating system, and
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be governed by the wider parties, which I found interesting in when I watched this film, that it was rated MA. It said MA rating, and it said like I can't remember what it was. It was like strong sexual references and strong sex scenes or something. Strong themes and strong sex scenes. And I was like, oh wow, what am I getting myself into here? And I guess as soon as you start talking about this kind of content, you want to safeguard yourself.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, this is another one of those Netflix films that was held off in Sweden. I just wanted to add that in. It didn't get released till the day later in Sweden. So yeah, I was just like, good old Sweden. I really would like to know why. Maybe they just have like a bigger release day, whatever day of the week. Netflix usually release on a Friday. I think maybe their bigger day is on a Saturday or something.
Well,
Yes,
Netflix do release on a particular day of the week, don't they? Normally.
yeah, it's usually about 5 p.m. Australian time, which I think equivalates to about midnight Friday US time.
So
Um,
I think, and that's the same with theatrical releases. So not even with Netflix. So I think movies are released on Fridays
in the States,
in the States, but we obviously get them on Thursdays here in Australia. But I'm assuming that Sweden just likes to release it on that day of the week
yeah.
as well, and there's probably
Yeah.
not a lot more to it.
If anyone knows, please let us know because I'm intrigued. I'm massively intrigued. Uh,
Have we looked it
yeah,
up? We should probably look it up.
probably should. I should. Yeah, I should probably actually do a little
It's got
research
to be
myself.
that though. It's got to be.
Sure, it's got to be. It's got to be. So it filmed in and around New York, and it didn't really need you didn't really need to know the location, I guess. But
No.
just for anyone that was interested, that's where they filmed this one. Uh, Consensus time, I think. I think
Yeah.
we should talk a little bit about how this was received. So, what have you got from your end, MJ?
So it's got a 6.3 out of 10 on IMDb, and that's off just over 13,000 ratings. 6.3 is a pretty good score, and it isn't as reflective on Letterboxd, which is a 2.7 out of 5. And that's
Mm.
actually got more ratings than IMDb with over 16,000. That really surprised me because we occasionally see Letterboxd has more ratings than IMDb with more of your artsy, filmy,
Mm.
film nerd sort of film, and this is a romantic comedy, a bit of a high school sort of teen comedy. I'm really surprised by that number, but the Letterboxd community didn't like it as much as the IMDb movie going community.
And what do you usually what's your take usually on the letterbox community, MJ? Because I want to hear you say that again.
Oh, well, I say it's I don't like the way I term it, but I say it's like you're filmy. Like if you're
Good,
on
good.
Letterboxd, you're obviously a big film fan, right? Like we love Letterboxd because we get to log and we get to make our own watch list and keep a track of the films that we've seen. And I think you
Good.
get the guys who love their films and read their reviews and all that kind of stuff on Letterboxd.
Good. I'm just setting you up for later on in the show when I want to talk about something about Letterboxd. So,
Oh, good. I was wondering where that was going because like
no,
there's nothing technical to the way that I described it.
no, it's just a big setup for later on that
Okay,
something
cool.
else I want to talk about. So Rotten Tomatoes, it was on 80% on 25 reviews,
Right.
which is fresh, which is pretty good. The audience was at 70%, so a little bit lower, and but just like 599, so just under 600 people had got onto Rotten Tomatoes to review that. And 91% of Google users enjoyed this film. So
Nice.
a bit more on the positive end on the Rotten Tomatoes scores.
Yeah, okay. I noticed. Remember, you said last week that or whether you said it on air or not, but you definitely heard of this film and you sort of
Yeah.
knew much about it. You hadn't seen it though, had you?
Hadn't seen it, but I'd heard positive things about. And the only reason I'd heard positive things about this was because when we'd done some of our previous rom coms like Ibiza and what was some of the other ones we've done recently? We're
Yeah.
already forgetting what they were, but the ones that we've sort of looked at recently, like Dude and Candy Jar,
Oh yeah.
when I was doing the research for those films, they'd often said like, this falls in comparison to Alex Strangelove, or so
Hmm.
that was how I knew about it, and I was like, oh, cool, I've got something to look forward to, because
Okay.
when I was looking into those films, it was like, this is a positive sort of Netflix rom com.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, yeah. All right, I think it's time for us to jump into our early thoughts,
Yeah.
and before we kick it off. So MJ, what are your early thoughts on Alex Strangelove?
I thought it was pretty good, albeit not quite getting everything right. I thought the story was a pretty good one. It's an interesting take on it. I'm probably going to be unfairly comparing it to Love, Simon a little bit, and that's because they were released around the same time with really similar subject matter.
Yep.
It definitely didn't take me to the same emotional places as Love, Simon did, and I'll probably get more into that when we chat about characters. But I mean, all in all, it was all right. It was a really important story, and I respect that first and foremost. Some nice messages around acceptance and perception, and time to time, it just felt a little bit kiddie and a little bit cheesy in its storytelling, where I just didn't know where it fit. Where it was trying to be like a high school losing your virginity film. It was trying to be like a really important story about, you know, heterosexuality and homosexuality, and where that lives in teenagers, and but it just kind of kept falling in weird places where I couldn't quite put my finger on it. So that's probably my criticism on it. But
Okay. Good. Good.
yeah, I didn't have much of an issue with it.
Okay, good. That's a good sort of overall coverage, I guess, of where you're feeling about it.
What about you, mate?
Rom com. What? um, I'm probably the one on here that doesn't like the rom com as much as you at times, I guess. But I absolutely love this.
Mm,
I love Simon as well. I saw that in the cinemas when it came out, and I thoroughly enjoyed that as well. But this one, like, I haven't been this excited or pumped up about a Netflix film in a long time. To me, the characters were believable, performances were really good. Like, yeah, there's some cliches and some stereotypes, but I thought it was like so nicely done, and this was funny. Like, this was probably the most I've laughed at a Netflix film in a long time. So
yeah,
I'm
good.
I'm very positive. I'm very, very positive about this one.
That's cool. So when you say this is the most excited you've been in a long time, you mean to talk about
Yeah,
rather
to
than
talk to you about it, because
before watching?
yeah,
Yeah,
no, yeah, not about, yeah, not prior, but after I watched it, I was like, I really, really liked that film. That was really good.
that's
So
awesome.
yes, I was like pumped. I'm excited to talk about this one.
I'm looking forward to you taking the reins and giving that positive energy to me because I did like it, but certainly not on the levels you did.
Nah, good. All right, well, that's going to make for an interesting discussion, I hope. And we'll start that off with our characters. So I'm going to start this one off with Alex,
Please.
because and obviously you've got to talk about Alex because he's in the title. His character's name's in the title, and they set to me, they set his character up so well and gave him so much development throughout, that you just picked up on these little things throughout that didn't need any further explanation, because some little tiny thing that you'd seen before had already developed him and told you that, and I just really
Mm,
appreciated that and thought that was really good. I they start him off as being the class president at school and this massive
mm,
sort of nerd. He loves his wildlife, and at the same time that they sort of show this comparison where he's a massive stress head, really uptight. He's got to have everything absolutely planned.
mm.
Dot his I's, tick his T's, whatever that saying is. I don't know if I got that
Cross
one
his
right.
teeth.
Yeah, cross his T's. No. and these worries and concerns. These are concerns that most people have about not being able to measure up, and just struggling with these day-to-day decisions that don't seem like that big a deal, but internally they do at times. and
Sure.
and and at the same time, they showed him as smart and insightful too. And I thought that, yeah, like I said before, the development of him was good. Just like these little things, like, at the end you see him at this party and they show him multiple times drinking beer, and
Mm,
knew just from the start of the film, like where he's at another party, that he doesn't drink beer. So I knew straight away something bad's going to happen here, and I just really
Mm.
appreciated that. And I thought, yeah, that was really well done.
Yeah, cool. I'm glad that you think that way because I kind of had issues with Alex and not in the sense anything that you said because I think you bang on with all that to be honest. I found it, and this is probably where I'm going to unfairly compare it to Love Simon, which I thought was an incredible film. That one really got to me, and I think a lot of the reasons why I'm unfairly comparing it is because things were different, right? So
Mm.
I found it interesting, and maybe you didn't get this same take that they didn't necessarily or didn't overly internalize Alex as a character. Like I got the feeling that Alex didn't know he was gay, and when he met Elliot, it was kind of like, oh, what's this feeling? But then later on, it goes through those moments of him when he was younger, kind of knowing all along. And I'm not disputing that's how it might feel sometimes, but I don't know if that worked for me because I felt this weird disconnection with the character. So I missed those internal battles that he would have been going through because I felt like I was watching him as opposed to sort of being on the journey with him.
Mhm.
Because we only saw the external ramifications of everything, and I found that to be a little bit tricky to get really in on him as opposed to with, and again, sorry for comparing it with Simon in Love Simon. You're literally like, there's probably not a scene in that movie that he's not in, and you are with him when he's on his own, and you're learning with him, and you understand everything that he goes through. I think he writes letters or sends messages to people, and so you understand his deepest and darkest feelings, and you know the battle he's going on. And I didn't go on that journey with Alex, and that probably just made me feel a little bit disconnected in that sense. So
Yeah, yeah,
it might be an
and that
unfair criticism, but it's just kind of how I felt with him.
no, and I think you've explained it perfectly well because that I think that's probably why I was on board was because I was on board with him straight away because I was appreciating all these little developments rather than the
Mm,
you know the because I picked up on that earlier, then I was happy to follow him along, and those scenes at the end where you saw his childhood, they really got me because I wasn't prepared to see that on the screen because I had this sort of internal like understanding of where he was going already. So, but yeah, so that completely makes sense to me because if you're not understanding him from the start or wanting or like a feeling or I don't know, even just getting those
mm.
those vibes that sort of stood out to me, then it's going to be really tricky when they do those shots at the end because you're just like, oh, this feels a bit too much almost, or
No, it just
um,
felt, yeah. I know what you're saying. It just felt forced that it was like, oh no, I did know all along. When what I was seeing was a guy who had no idea, and not suggesting in any way that that is not how it feels. I can totally sympathize with the fact that this confusion is is so real, and I think he's done a pretty good job at conveying that confusion.
hmm,
But as an audience member, I'm like, hang on, this is a guy who I feel like had no idea that he was gay. Then all of a sudden he met a guy and thought, oh, I don't mind this. And then he looks back and goes, oh, yeah, I was always gay. And it's not that clear cut. I'm not even suggesting that for a second. But
yeah,
that's kind of where I felt I wasn't with him because I was so, it was all just external stuff that I was watching as opposed to being there with. So I completely understand what you're saying and I love it.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
No, I think we're
I
both
just, yeah,
understand each
yeah, I
other.
just wasn't there.
All right, who do you want to talk about next?
Let's go with Claire. And not that I have a heap to say about her because I don't I don't really know what to make of her. I don't know whether she was oblivious to this side of Alex, and was there like a normality to their relationship that we didn't see that could have made her kind of overlook this, um, because the signs were clearly there from his actions, and you've got a 17, 18-year old boy who's, yeah, whenever they were sexual in anything that I saw, it was like, well, clearly something's not right with it. And, you can put it down to nerves only so long. But on the flip
Yeah,
side of Claire, I did really enjoy seeing the other side of the ledger, and the impact that the news of him being homosexual actually had on more than just him,
yeah,
and why that would weigh down him and suppress that emotion because he genuinely cared. I have no doubt that he loved Claire and he cared for Claire.
mm,
They're just, as soon as it got to the bedroom, he's like, "Hang on, no, this is not something that I want to do." So I like the fact that she was there to show that side of it.
yeah. I've enjoyed that. I thought that they did a really good job of making her this sort of understanding person who was super caring, and super understanding. And I was a little bit angry with her at the end though, because I wanted her to be more angry about what she'd been through with him. But
Sure.
then I sort of reflected on it a little bit, and I thought, look, I didn't really need, like, you don't need that, because we didn't need her to be angry at him. We needed her to be accepting, and she
Mm,
would have gone through her own internal sort of thing. So at the end, I was kind of really happy with the way that she dealt with the thing. And like you were talking about before, I based on how they developed Alex, I completely believed that he was just, a stress head, and just freaking out about this whole experience throughout the whole thing. So and the way that she knew and understood him, I felt like that's probably why she was so blindsided. And that,
mm.
but that's just me, sort of. Yeah, that was, I don't know. I was really into this.
Yeah, no, that's
I was really into it.
for what it's worth, and I'm cutting into probably my favorite scene of the film by saying this, but I think it's relevant. That the scene where they're in the car and talking through it, and they're both sort of bawling their eyes out. I think that's enough for me to see Claire's side of it, and because she starts off that scene pretty angry, but she's a good enough person to understand that this is bigger than. I'm sorry that we had to break up, and I didn't mean to be living a lie. Like there's more to it, and I think that kind of was enough for me, and that was an excellent scene.
Yeah,
And you understood, because she would have heard, and even the fact that she goes to her mum afterwards and doesn't say anything and just starts crying, like there's enough there that you didn't need to be angry as much as she was just like got something ripped out of her, really.
yeah, good. Okay, who do you want to say next? Who have we got next?
Elliot.
Good. All right. What have you got to say about Elliot?
Well, first things first, I want to say I thought it was a really charismatic performance from Antonio Marziale. I thought he was great. I've never seen him before. I don't think he's been in too much, from what I can gather. But this was such a tricky role, right? Because Elliot's got to be not look like this kind of homewrecker that comes in and
Mm,
steals the show from Claire, and he's quite gentle in his prodding of Alex, and he's not pushing him to do or say anything, but he suspects something straight away, and he kind of probably having gone through similar emotions himself, navigates it really nicely to sort of just question him and make him think a certain way and go, have you thought about this? Are you sure you're not like this? And without actually doing it. And I thought he did all that really well. I thought he was really likable when he could have come across the wrong way. If they had got this character wrong, this movie changes a lot. Because as an audience, you have to be on board with Elliot. And
mm.
that's really tricky to get right. So I thought it was an awesome performance. And yeah, I just think he was a really likable character in what could have gone really wrong.
Yeah, I agree with everything you're saying. I wanted him to be more of a babe, like that guy from the kissing booth. That was my one criticism. I wanted him to be like the guy from the kissing booth. That would have, like, given made this a 5-star film for me. Yeah,
I
but
thought he was handsome enough.
oh yeah, no, I'm not saying he wasn't. I was just like, that was just me personally.
Yeah, the guy from the kissing booth was like a 6'6" Adonis with
Yeah.
muscles on muscles. Yeah, he was a
Yeah.
dreamboat. You're right.
Yeah, that's, yeah. Anyway, so that, yeah, I completely agree. I'm going to move into Dell,
Oh yeah.
because Dell Alex's best mate. I thought this guy was hilarious. I
Mm,
thought he was a great friend in the way that he dealt with Alex, and I think that, even though he was sort of the joker of the film,
mm,
or the one that always played the practical jokes, it was nice that you still got to see that. The side of him that he could get hurt as well, and he had
mm.
feelings, and he still got those emotions, even though he wants to be the funny one. So I really liked him as a character.
Yeah, I don't think I could have said that much better myself because the character really worked for me as well. And I mean, not just necessarily the fact that he was the immature sidekick like the other two were. Like we do spend enough time with him to understand him more and his desires more. And I mean, he plays that supportive best friend role. I could argue that Alex didn't really have any friends that were that close because there's this weird dynamic that he has with his friendship group. I
Yeah,
think Dell was as close as there was, and he acted appropriately when he needed to. This is something that kind of bothered me the whole time. Is that
there's that
there's that scene
that
at the
Blake.
start when they're like, "Oh, hey, where's the weirdest place you guys have had sex?"
Yeah.
If
That
you're
Blake
his
and
best
Josh guy.
friend,
Oh my
yeah, I
god.
know they were useless, weren't they?
They
If you're
were.
his best friend, you know that these two haven't had sex. There's so many things that this friendship group says and does that's
Mm.
like, this is not your best friend. But then I don't know who his best friends are. I just feel like he just doesn't have many close friends, which I don't know. It was a bit weird. The whole friendship dynamic thing didn't really work for me.
Mm.
But
And
I love Del. I love Del. I'll get you. Sorry,
yeah,
yeah.
good. And then yeah, just on the flip side, I guess you got the Sophie, who's
Sophie
Claire's
Hicks.
best mate, and yeah, I mean, I wasn't a fan of her because to me, like, you can't just have her change or like just at the end of the film because, like, I mean, yeah, she wasn't that important anyway, so it didn't really
Jesse,
matter.
she
But
kept that photo the whole time.
yeah, no, but that's rubbish. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, whatever.
Maybe she
She,
really cared for Dell all along, but she was just as shy as he was. Well, he actually wasn't shy. Maybe she was just too
no,
shy to do anything about it, or
possibly.
the social status of dating Dell wasn't good enough.
Yeah, you've always got a good explanation. I like a good explanation.
I wasn't thinking too much about Sophie Hicks before you mentioned her. I'll be honest.
Have you got any other characters? I haven't.
No, I don't think there's much more that's worth
Uh,
digging into.
I think I just want to have a quick chat about Craig Johnson, who
Mm,
we mentioned earlier. This is his fourth directing feature,
hmm
and he also directed an episode of Looking, which was a HBO show which I've recommended at some stage over our 90 episodes
Okay.
before. And like you've mentioned in at the start, like he's openly gay, and this is where I want to bring up Letterboxd because this really
hmm
frustrated me. And a lot
Okay.
of the criticism on Letterboxd, I went through the reviews because I was like, I want to read why this has only got a 2.7 or whatever it was.
Yep.
And a lot of the criticism on Letterboxd were all these people being like, oh, why did they let a straight white guy direct this? Oh, this is
No.
ridiculous. And so to me, this was sort of making me think, okay, Letterboxd isn't as like, it was frustrating me because I was like, there's all these people that are just writing complete rubbish who obviously didn't even look into the guy who directed it or the story behind it,
Mm,
because the criticisms of it were like, oh, why couldn't you just have left him as a bisexual and not as a gay? Like, why did he have to turn into a gay guy? And like the criticism on there to me was like watching, a young bunch of kids just
very interesting.
write abusive comments, and that really frustrated me. So
Or maybe I've given the Letterbox family too much credit.
yeah. So that was just me. But I'm the same as you. I respect Letterbox. I've mentioned, like, my wife will watch stuff with me if it's like over a 3 on
Mm.
Letterbox, because generally Letterbox is on track. But for this one, like, a lot of the stuff that was written as reviews for this film was, yeah, really frustrated me.
There you go. Well, I don't write reviews on Letterbox, so maybe the positive Letterbox audience are the ones who are just logging, giving it a rating, and moving on to the
Yeah,
next one.
and
I mean,
well, I've
any time someone's got the opportunity to type something, you'll find your keyboard warriors out there. So
I like to try and write a comment on most of the films, but I'm trying not to be too negative
yeah,
about. Or if I am going to write something negative, I make sure that I've looked into whatever I'm writing about to make sure that what I'm writing is correct. Yeah,
yeah, that's fair. Don't want to go out on a limb and get that wrong, but I can
yeah,
understand maybe if you are homosexual watching this film, and the story itself doesn't resonate with your own story, that you
mm,
would jump to conclusions and go, "Well, this is absolute rubbish." Like, why would someone write this and make this film who doesn't know what they're talking about?
yeah. But like, everyone's story is different, so I think, and
That's
I
exactly
think,
right. Yeah.
yeah. All right,
Craig
time
Johnson
to
also was the writer and director of The Skeleton Twins, which was a semi-big film back in 2014 with Bill Hader and
yeah.
Kristen Wiig, and he won a screenwriting award at Sundance for that film. So he's doing all
I
right,
haven't.
Craig
Have you
Johnson.
have you seen that? I haven't seen that.
I haven't seen it. No,
No,
I'd like to
no.
though. I remember when it came out.
Yeah, I might have to add it to our watch list
Maybe
on
we should.
Letterboxd. All right, time to check out some scenes. I think we're
hmm
ready for that moment where we discuss some things that we liked about the film. So, what are some things that you enjoyed, MJ?
Okay. First thing I really liked was Dell's trip that he had after licking that frog.
That
I thought it was really funny. I thought it felt kind of real the way that it slowly progressed, and um, memorable in the sense that it ended with him throwing up gummy bears
yeah.
everywhere. It was a funny scene. Simple as
I
that.
that yeah, that whole sequence with him was just like absolutely hilarious. From the that singing hose that just popped up out of nowhere, and I
Yeah,
just
that
like,
was pretty funny.
and then they're playing that drama ball, and like
Yeah,
he just
yeah.
thinks it's a big ball of fire, and then the frog talks to him, and then the gummy worms in the pantry, and then the vomit. Like, it was just like, yeah, I thought that whole sequence was hilarious. So I agree
The
with you on that
throwing
one.
the drama ball thing was good when they're just like, wow, this guy's amazing.
Goes,
Because I thought he was acting.
crashes into the drum kit. It was. I thought that was really really funny.
I liked the scene with Elliot and Alex after the concert. I think they're having dinner or something, having a drink. I like the fact that Elliot kind of subtly called him out while Alex was exploring it all internally that we weren't really a part of, but you could see he was exploring it. And I think as an audience, that was when I was first at a point where I'm assuming this guy's gay, and we're gonna watch him figure it all out. But that scene made me really like Elliot as well. So
Yeah,
um,
I liked the end of that conversation in that scene where he calls him a dork, and I'm in my head, I'm like, dork's a whale's penis, and then the next line was, "You're calling me a whale's penis." I couldn't stop laughing. I'm like, that's amazing. Yeah,
so
anyway,
that's why you like this film
yeah,
because you
one
are
line.
Alex.
I'm
Um,
I'm happily married, but like I did think Alex was an amazing character. So yeah. Anyway, keep
yeah,
going.
but you
Sorry.
do you have more nature facts like that, or you just know that a dog's a whale's penis?
Nah, I just knew that a dork was a whale's penis. I don't know why.
Okay.
But yeah.
All right. Well, the next thing I like, as insensitive as it kind of was, when Alex was telling Dell that he was bi, and then Dell was just basically shooting him down. But I like the fact that it proved a good point around the confusion about this stuff as a high schooler.
Mm.
There's 15 different things that you think you might be, and that confusion that Alex is like, oh yeah, you know what? Maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm just nervous about having sex, and it all kind of made sense to me, and it sort of had that relatable humor with the ever evolving LGBTQT sort of world and things that are changing so much. And I found it a little bit funny, but I also think that there was a home truth there that there'd be a ton of high schoolers that are probably going through all that in their own head right now, and where do I fit in? So it was
I,
it was it was a good scene.
I mean, I think this is the same scene where he like says, "Do you jerk off to Panic at the Disco?"
Ah,
I'm
yeah,
pretty
it's
sure that was,
also the
yeah, yeah,
it's also the scene where he got his dick out. I forgot about
yeah, yeah,
that.
definitely. Yeah, and then he's like, "Do you look at vampires while you do it?" And then he gets it. Like, that was so funny. I thought that was great. That was good. I've got all the ones you've got so far. This is good.
Good. I'm glad. I mentioned this earlier, but I like the rawness of that scene in the car where they're both going through all the most. Sorry, once he's found out that he's told her that he's gay. He said he likes someone else. He told her that he's gay. They're going through all the emotions, all the questions. I kind of didn't love how it ended with, "Do you still want to go to prom?" Like, because I think that scene was really doing something like as a cleansing and moving on and coming out for both of them. But I thought it was a really good scene, regardless.
Yeah, I enjoyed that scene too. That was an emotional scene for me, and I just like the lines, like even though this tough situation is like, I did meet the right girl, and I'm scared of
Mm.
losing you. Like, that was just, to me, that just got me. That was really good, really
Yeah,
really good
that's
scene.
it. And you don't, as I said, you don't doubt that he loves her, and there's just more complications to it. But
Yeah.
the final scene that I've got. Sorry, my dog is scratching at the door. You want to come in, mate? Um, Final scene that I've got. I just thought that final, very final scene post movie, the powerful ending with everyone coming out story on YouTube.
Yeah.
Um, I thought that was a really nice touch because this is what the film's about, and there's people that this film's going to speak to that aren't going to be doing those things and won't have the balls to come out and do it, and then just showing like this is normal. This is what people are doing. So
Yeah.
that was really good, really nice touch. And apparently that was written in the very initial script 10 years ago,
Oh wow. Yeah.
and they decided to keep it in there. And I can imagine how that would have been a tough decision, but I think it worked perfectly.
Yeah, I think that was excellent too. Oh, good. Well, I don't know if this has happened, but every scene you had, I had as well. That was good.
That's great.
I do have I do have a few more though.
I imagine you
Uh,
would.
I had a big list for this one. Just things that got me laughing, I guess. That I want to have a chat about. So, the first thing that got me like in like a bit of a giggle was at the start when Claire and Alex sort of first meet, and they're in this class, and it's a video production class, and the teacher's going on about how expensive the equipment is, and you break it, you pay for it, and I was just like, I have done that so many times. I just thought that was
I was gonna say that's a weird thing to like.
I was just like, this just reminds, like, it was realistic to me. I was like, that was great. And then in that same sort of scene where, like, he's sitting next to Claire, and she's drawing the octopus or whatever, and he
Mm.
literally out loud says, "I want you," and I just laughed. I was like, that was so funny. And he's like, "I want you to be my video production partner." I thought that was really good.
So this is
So,
when you know a film has really struck a chord with you. When these
mm,
little things happen, and you laugh. You're all in on this character, and you can
Oh,
tell. And this is
massively.
10 minutes into the film, and you were all in on him.
Yeah, and they make a joke about Carrie from
Oh
Stephen
yeah.
King Carrie, and then the quick cut and shows them dressed up as them,
Mm,
for the prom or whatever it was, and I was like, that was great. It was just nice. Like,
yeah, it
um,
was pretty good.
and then there's another scene with Alex daydreaming in his science class, and I've written my things. I'm like, oh, don't blame him. And then he's got this vision of the teacher like saying, "You're gonna have hot, sweaty sex. There's gonna be ass slapping." And it had me in stitches. Like, seriously, like I was just enjoying this film. I was just right into it, and
That teacher was well cast for that, actually.
yeah, and this is sort of a lead on to one of the scenes you spoke about before, where Alex and Elliot go to this gig together, and there was just this nice little pause where they're there and they're dancing and they're singing, and the camera just focuses on these two guys together, and it was just like you were Alex's eyes looking at those two guys, just sort of reflecting, going, "Oh, that could be me," sort of thing. I really
Mm.
appreciated that. I thought that was good.
There was an
Um,
interesting quote from Craig Johnson about that, and he went to Amika. Remember Mika, the singer? He used to sing like "Love
oh
Today"
yeah,
and what was his other
yeah. I
song?
could be brown, I could be blue,
Yeah,
I could
Grace
be
Kelly
yeah,
song.
that one,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, that one, yeah.
he was at a Maker concert in 2008, I think it was, when he first, and that was the inspiration to write the script. And he said he was there, and there were so many high schoolers or teenagers who were just openly gay and comfortable with each other. And he was sort of nearly a generation above that. And he's like, wow, it's just so liberating to see all this. And that's what gave him the idea of maybe I'll write my story as a high schooler and condense it into a senior year. And that was the inspiration. So the scene that he shot at the concert was very much like the inspiration for
Mm,
writing the film. So yeah,
that's a cool story. That's really
yeah,
good. I thought, after Alex gets home from that gig and then he has that big fight with Claire, I just thought the chemistry between the two was really good. And Claire
mm,
played it off like, in that really good way of, how disappointed and angry she was, and she needed that lift up with her mum being sick. And I
yeah.
really appreciate that scene as well.
He was a super
And then
dick to her.
yeah, he was. He sure
Yeah.
was. And then Claire's at home, and like her mum walks in, and I just like I was like, oh, it's Eames from Law and Order. Like her mum, like just that familiar face. This is how into this film I was. Like a familiar face on the screen. I was like, Law and Order, Criminal Intent. Oh my god, I love you. I was like, I just was having these happy feels. It was just, I
Are you a
kind
Law
of,
and Order fan?
yeah, I used to. Oh mate, Criminal Intent was my favorite Law and Order.
Is that right?
Absolutely loved Criminal Intent. And my wife, big fan of SVU, so we've watched quite a lot of Law and Order over
I
the
always
years.
saw Law and Order as one of those shows that people just kind of watch if it's on, but they don't religiously watch it. But there you go.
Binge box sets like massively. Yeah,
Really? Yeah, there you go.
yeah. Uh, the in the kitchen, the cereal boxes changing to like the logos to like gay flags and heteros and bike crunchies. I just thought that was well done. There was a nice little.
Heteros was clever.
Yeah, I thought that was cool. The B-52 song playing in the car. I was just like, straight away I was like, it's B-52s and bopping along, and just the follow on with the dance in the bedroom, and as the camera pans around the room, there's just this big moonlight poster on the wall. And I was just like, I just wrote, I was
Mm,
like, I love this scene. Like, I just thought it was excellent. And
it's all
then
there.
even
Yeah.
his little, yeah, it was really good. the, Towards the end when the boys, they've broken up and the boys are going to this party, and then his friend just makes this Nambler joke, and I just I just thought it was funny because I was like, Nambler from South Park. It just made me laugh. Do you know what Nambler stands for?
No.
It's the North American Man Boy Love Association. So it's just made me laugh. And then going to the party at his friend Blake, he just like yells out, let's get some girl pregnant. Or some bitches pregnant. And I was like, I had a laugh. I've laughed
Oh
so much in
wow,
this film.
no, that character sucked.
Yeah,
I had
just
no
that one
time for
line.
Blake.
Just that one line.
Yeah.
And then, Sophie and Claire come to the party, and then they make that joke about Lord of the Rings and what's what the boys are talking about, and that's what they're actually doing. I
That
thought
was
that was
actually pretty
funny.
funny. That was
Yeah,
pretty funny.
thought that was funny too. Sorry, I've only got a couple to go. The I liked that scene with Dell in the gutter being upset, and then calling Sophie out on being evil and horrible, and
Mm,
but yeah, like I said, I wasn't a massive fan of her sort of turning. Um,
mm,
the pool scene, and then him going in and having those visions and the horrible things that happened when he was a kid. I just
mm,
appreciated that. Um, and then Claire crying in her mum's arms after the fallout, that really got me as well. And then finally, like I just liked at the end, it wasn't fantastic, but Claire knew Alex well enough and respected him well enough that she organized for Elliot to come to that dance, and I just really appreciated that because I was like, as hurt as you are, you know what this guy's like, and there was no chance of him following us up or doing anything about it. So she was there to sort of guide that. So I enjoyed that too.
So you are a very fierce note taker when you watch movies.
Yep.
How long did it take you to watch this movie?
Normal
Do you
time.
pause and write notes, or
No, didn't stop it at all. Just
just flowed through? There would have been things where you would have gone like a 10-minute period of just constant writing, judging from the chronological order of those scenes.
sorry, I did take a bit of time, but no, I just
No,
I go as I go along. I'm a bit of a touch typer, so um, just bang it out as I'm watching. It's good,
I
very
like
good.
it.
Good. So, is there anything that you didn't like in this one?
Not too much, but like straight off the bat, I really didn't get into those Savage Kingdom videos that they were shooting around the school. Like, I wasn't sure what sort of movie this was going to be, whether it was going to be like an American Pie teen comedy, and then I was like, oh no, it's like a kiddie teen movie. But then it wasn't quite that either.
It
But
wasn't.
those Savage Kingdom videos with overlapping them with students like making out and doing weird shit was just rubbish. It didn't work for me.
Yeah, I
Um,
like the way they incorporated those throughout the story to help tell how people are feeling, especially like Claire when she's doing that recording by herself when they've sort of had that fight. But yeah, I completely agree.
I
The
did
acting
like
was
the
really
animal link. You're
good.
right. I did like the
Yeah,
animal link, but who the hell's watching those videos? Because they're
I
getting like millions
know.
of hits, and I'm like, why? Why are people watching this? The only
Mm,
other scene that I had, and you actually liked this, but I thought it was really weird that Elliot came to prom. I didn't need this to be, and I know in Alex's head there was the issue of the perception of how it looks, but I kind of didn't want this to be a big public hoo ha kiss
yeah,
moment. I think him coming out was a big moment, and the idea of everyone kind of knew he was gay was big. It didn't sit as well with me that he was just having a big kiss on the dance floor with another guy. Like I didn't need that necessarily. I think his story was a little bit more closed, and um, you're right. Maybe he wouldn't have done anything about it outside of those circumstances, but
yeah,
watching it, I kind of wish they had just done it in their own time because there was
yeah.
chemistry with them from the start.
Yeah, good point. And just sort of fleshing out on that a little bit, I enjoyed that they didn't have the parents really interfere in this situation. It was all about
Mm,
the kids dealing with it themselves, and I appreciated that as well. I thought that was good.
that's a good
And
call.
and doing that through the school sort of thing sort of helped with that as well, I guess. But yeah, I agree. It was yeah, possibly didn't have to be done that way. Cool. Well, I haven't got anything.
I
So
was going to
apart
say there couldn't be much left to.
nah, sorry. apart from
Sorry, I'm not having a go at you for writing them all.
So apart from Sophie, like her sort of
Oh yeah,
reveal,
her
those
arc.
special
Yeah,
photos. Yeah. Apart from like keeping those creepy photos from a kid when that was weird. But that's it.
they did a pretty good job with that kid looking like the older Dell. Like
Yeah.
that was impressive because I was like, oh, that's actually him. I was like, hang on, no, it's not. He's quite young. But no,
Yeah.
well, unless that actor took some photos like that when he was younger.
Kid photoshopped his head, maybe. Um,
Yeah, maybe.
okay. Well, we've covered this a lot already, but what was this film saying? What are some messages that it was trying to put out? What have you got, MJ?
Oh, look, the overarching idea of navigating your own sexuality and under that umbrella is the idea of dealing with the personal consequences, basically what's in your head versus what the reality of it is, and the whole public perception and the idea of hurting people with your decision as well. There's a lot of baggage here that comes with, which is crazy, right? Because if you're homosexual, you're homosexual. You're born that way. No one did anything wrong for it to happen. It happened, and
Mm.
um, but there's just so much that's got to go through your mind. Like I didn't have to have obviously being heterosexual, you don't have to sit there and tell everyone one day, hey, you know what, I'm straight. Like it's crazy to think that you need to, but
Yeah.
it's reality.
Yep.
They
Yeah.
capture it well.
Yeah, the just following on like exactly what you said, like being this like non-judgmental and being empathetic and understanding how people are feeling, and that whole idea of Alex sort of finding himself as well. But at the same time too, there's a lot of like little things about having fun and sort of living in the moment too, and not getting too angry or upset about what's happening or where you're at.
Mm.
And the one thing that I really did like about this was reflections. Throughout the whole film, there was a lot of instances where they used like this idea of a reflection, and it sort of started off. through the aquarium and through these animals and through their first official date, if you want to
Mm,
call it. And you've got the two sort of staring at the reflection of these animals through these glass windows, and then it follows in with him leaning over the pool, absolutely drunk,
mm,
and he's having these reflections of his past, and then finally, like at the prom, he's in the bathroom looking in the mirror, and he
mm.
nearly blows this one chance with Elliot, and I just liked that they used that mirror or the glass to sort of reflect how he was feeling or what was going on in his life. I thought that was cool.
Yeah, it's the idea of his own perception of himself, and
Mm,
how he feels about himself as opposed to how other people might actually feel about it. Because the moment when they kiss on the dance floor, it's just great to see all his mates have these really normal responses. Like it's not like it's not a huge deal, and B, it's not like a whoa, he's kissing a guy. It's just like, oh, good on you, mate. And that's such a nice thing. I'm glad. I probably should have put that in something that I liked, because they could have overdone it, like a big
mm,
like celebration, but it's nice because it shouldn't be, right. It's just like everyone else.
yeah,
And his friends treated him perfectly in that sense.
yeah, good. All right. Well, what did you take away from this one, MJ?
Uh, I feel bad because you liked it so much, but like
It's all right.
sadly for me, I worry that a film like this that deals with such an important question, and it strives to tell a story that I think should be seen by a lot, if not all, teens. To me, it was inherently forgettable. So none of it really stayed with me, and I only watched it 2 days ago, and I'm kind of racking my brain to remember like the specific details of things, and I think that's just because I lacked a real connection with the main character that I spoke about before. But I worry that in 2 weeks, let alone 2 years time, I'm not going to be able to tell you anything about this film.
Yep, that's and that's completely fair, because if a film doesn't sit with you, then there's no reason for you to, yeah,
And it's not a
want to.
film that I disliked. It's just that I watched it and it's not sticking in my brain. Like, um,
Yeah.
what about you?
Yeah, like I'm similar, like the similar release to Dear Simon. I remember that film. I enjoyed that film, and I thought this film was just as great as that. Like, it was well rounded. It, it was obvious from early on where the story was going to go, though. So I will say that, like from the first conversation, which we mentioned earlier, where the his Alex's so-called friends didn't know that him and Claire hadn't slept together, and
Mm.
then from that to lead into oh, are you gay? You haven't slept with your girlfriend, that sort of thing. It was so clear where it was going. So that's probably my one little critique of it, I guess. That it was pretty obvious where it was going, but I was along for the ride, so I enjoyed it.
Yeah, that part of it was fine. Did you know he was like? Did you know enough about the story to know that he was going to be gay? Or
Yeah, I read the two-line summary on Netflix, like when you
so did
started.
I. But I saw the name Elliot, and I thought of like Scrubs, like Elliot's a girl, and I didn't think about
Ah,
it until we met Elliot, and I was like, oh, okay, that's what we're doing in this film.
yeah, yeah. All right. IMDb time. Did you jump onto IMDb to check anything out?
Yeah, I did straight away as well. So the guy who plays Dell is named Daniel Zolghardr. Probably pronouncing that wrong. Sorry, Daniel. But he is in the movie Eighth Grade from, I think, probably the same year, if not like 2018, 2019. He plays Riley in Eighth Grade, which is a really bad role. He's kind of tries to seduce a girl he doesn't want to be seduced, who's younger than him. And
Okay.
but I remembered him straight away. And if you haven't seen Eighth Grade, it's a really really powerful film.
Okay.
Directed by Bo Burnham. Really enjoyed
Okay.
it. But he was in that and recognized him straight away. He's got that really familiar face, as you can probably imagine.
Good. Well, I'm sure he won't be upset, because I'm sure you pronounced his first name right, so that's okay. It's all good.
Daniel.
Good job. Happy Daniel. I I jumped on to look up Alex's friend, the Blake guy, who was pretty much a nothing character, but
With the glasses.
yeah, his name's Nick Dodani, and that was a complete miss by me. Hadn't seen him in anything.
Haven't
He just
seen
had a
him?
really
Yeah.
funny face. Yeah, so
He does. If you had said, I wouldn't been surprised if I'd have known him from something. But good on him for having a
yeah,
familiar face there.
yeah, nothing. So we're getting to that time last week where we started recording, and I couldn't see anymore. So I should have learned from my lesson. It's getting
I
very
was
dark.
thinking that it does get dark quickly in
Yeah.
Melbourne this time of year.
Yeah, you might have to remind me to turn the lights on next week. So this is the time where we can ask each other some questions. Is there anything that you want to ask me about this one, MJ?
We sort of spoke about this, but I don't know if I got your answer. But do you actually think Alex had many close friends? How did you feel about the friendship group?
I think Dal was a really good mate of his, and then the
Yep.
other two were sort of just hanger oners. So him and Dal
Yeah.
were good mates, and then obviously a lot of his time was committed to Claire, I think, and that's probably where
Felt
he's
that
at.
way, didn't it?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
obviously, like he was voted like that captain or whatever it was too. So he can't have
Yeah.
been
Class
seen
president.
as too. I don't know. He obviously had
Well, it was
connections.
sorry. It wasn't that he like people didn't like him. I just was like, I'm not buying these
Mm.
friendships of yours. I feel like you're not putting enough in or getting enough out or whatever it is. Those friendships didn't quite feel real or good enough to me. But
Hmm.
I agree that Dell performed the duties of a best friend when required.
Yep. Good. All right. Anything else?
Did Alex get into Columbus?
No.
Was that the school he was trying to get into?
Yeah. Yeah. Nah. I don't think so.
Don't think he did, but I thought he was like super smart and could have got into Yale.
Well, it was either that or he's really upset about getting in because he didn't want to go with Claire anymore.
Well, that's the thing. I got the vibe that he got in, but it didn't
Yeah.
matter because the reason he was going there was because of Claire.
For Claire. Yeah.
But
Mm.
I kind of didn't mind that they left that unresolved.
Yeah. No. It's a good one. I like that question.
Thanks.
Good. My turn.
Your turn.
All right. Well, I think I know what you're going to say to this one already because I was hoping you were going to enjoy this a bit more. But I like reading reviews on Roger Ebert's website. Obviously,
Oh yeah,
Roger's passed, but they
yep.
have people that write reviews, and this
They
is
do.
the
Yep.
opening. Yeah, they do. This is the opening line for one of the reviews that they had on their thing. So they said, if you enjoyed Netflix original films such as The Kissing Booth, Dude, and Candy Jar, you're more than prepared to like Alex Strangelove.
Mm.
Now, to me, I was like, this is going to be way above anyone who enjoyed those films. I was like, that statement's not true. You've got to be more sophisticated and educated to like this film than those ones.
I think it's a pretty crappy comment because they're very different. Like
Yeah,
for what it's worth, I didn't like The Kissing Booth. I didn't really like Dude. Candy
yeah,
Jar came home hard. Like it wasn't a bad film in the end. But they were really like Candy Jar. I can see some similarities to this one and Candy Jar. I can.
yeah, mm,
Um, but yeah, the other two aren't really got anything to do with this.
yeah, exactly. Anyway, that's just me being random. I was like, that sort of quote confused me, considering how well endowed we are into these Netflix films.
Yeah,
And that was
true.
wrong word to use. I think endowed is not the right word. Last one. Another homecoming on film, MJ. Another Netflix film that's got like a homecoming or a you know
Prom. Yeah.
prom or whatever they are. Like, oh, are we
At
going to
least,
get
at
a
least this one wasn't unclear about who can actually go. I feel like we've had three movies that like everyone in the school goes to them. It doesn't matter what age you are. They confused the hell out of me. This one was a little bit more straightforward, at least.
really? Elliot was allowed to go. Like, I was
Yeah,
just
but
confused.
he like invited or was he just like shunned in? I don't know. But you can invite dates from other schools. I'm okay with that. But like, there's one where they made a big point about these two people with different ages.
Yeah.
It was dude. It was dude because she was grooming this guy for the role, and then he was at the prom that she was at. Like that's where it confused me.
Hmm. All right. I think we're ready to wrap this one up.
I think
We've had a
I
good
think
chat.
we are.
I think
Yeah.
only the two of us. We've been doing all right. So we give our films a rating out of 5. So MJ, what are you going to give this one out of 5 on the Flix Forum rating?
Yeah, for me, I think I've sort of said this all before, but it was a really important story. It had some nice, poignant moments. It just sadly failed to build a real connection with me, and the main character just felt too distant. And I was kind of watching his story rather than being taken along for the ride. So it's 2.5 stars for me.
Okay, very nice. Um, well, yeah, I think we can probably work out. I'm a little bit different with this one. So I love this film. I haven't seen a movie that's sort of given me like those feelings like this one in a long time, and I haven't seen a Netflix film, that's for sure, that made me laugh or smile as much of this one as this one did. I thought the cast were excellent. I thought it was perfectly done, and it just made me feel happy. To me, I was like thinking this is like a modern Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and I know I'll probably
Oof.
whack. Yeah, I know Ferris is like one of those films that people have highly regarded, but to me, yeah, it's excellent. So I'm giving it a 4 out of 5.
Yeah,
Um,
mate, you can call
pretty
it whatever
high.
you want to call it, mate. It's your
Yeah,
take.
so I think that gives us an average of a 3.25. out of 5 on Flix Forum. So
So,
yeah,
did you prefer this to Love, Simon? Horrible question, I know, but if you could pick one,
it's like I haven't seen Love, Simon since it was out at the cinema. So I remember that I really
it
really
wasn't that
enjoyed
long
it.
ago. It was like 3 years ago, if that.
Was it? I thought it felt like a lot longer than
Oh,
that.
maybe it was a bit longer, but
Oh no, it wasn't. Yeah, probably wasn't. Yeah, you're probably about right. About 2 years, 3 years. But yeah, no, I enjoyed them both. So I think I'd have to rewatch Love, Simon to work out what I'd give
sure.
it. But yeah, I think they're both good films.
Mm,
All right, so we're on social media. We have
we
Twitter,
are.
we have Facebook, we have Instagram. We're active on there, so please give us a follow if you can. Question of the week this week was: can you name any B-52 songs other than Love Shack? I just
Mm. I don't know.
yeah.
So Craig Johnson also was working on a Beef 2's documentary.
You've got all these good facts about him that he's sort of intertwined into this film.
Yeah, it's been things I'm like, do I bring it up? No, I won't bring it up. And then when the right thing comes up, it's like, well, it
Yeah,
becomes really relevant. Well done. I don't know. When I read the interview with him, it was probably a couple of years ago. So I wonder if he's actually done anything about it. I haven't seen it, but
yeah. The only
um,
other one I
he's
can
a
think of
huge
is
fan.
Rock Lobster. Do you know Rock Lobster?
Is that B-52s? Is it?
Yeah, I don't know. I just
Trying to think of my old iTunes days. I'm sure I've seen a few B-52s on the old family computer back in the day,
probably.
but I can't think.
Yeah.
Nothing comes to mind.
All right. Well, we're back again next week. We
We
have another
are.
film to do. This one, when I just had a look to see what it was to sort of get the cast and stuff, this one sounds really, really interesting.
Oh,
It's a 2018 Indian anthology film. So it's called
anthologies.
Lust. Yeah, it's called Lust Stories, and it's directed by and it stars an ensemble creative team and cast. So I think it's got
Mm.
4 different stories, 4 different directors. But this is actually the second film in a trilogy.
Oh,
So
oh,
yeah, so I wanted to bring that up because I don't know, I wanted to decide do I need to watch the first one? So they're obviously the stories all are completely different. They don't
yeah, yeah.
I don't think, yeah, but so the first one is on Netflix. It's not a Netflix original. The second one obviously is Lust Stories, which we're going to look at next week, and the third one is a Netflix original, which was released at the start of 2020, called Ghost Stories, which I think we
Ah,
spoke possibly, yeah, which we know about. So
yeah, I know that name.
yeah, so this is the second of that trilogy. So I need to decide whether I'm going to watch the first one before I watch that. But yeah, that's
Have
what
you
we've
got
got
that? Have you
next
got
week.
the name of the first one? Because obviously we're talking about lust and ghosts.
Yeah, I think it's Bombay something. I can't remember what the word is.
Okay,
Yeah, so it's either Bombay or Mumbai. I think it's Bombay. Sorry, that's
I'm
really poor of me. I should
intrigued.
have it.
I am
So yeah, so
intrigued by this now.
yeah, so Lust Stories next week. So that's what we've got. So I think
Sounds
it's
a bit
a
sexy too.
bit over 2 hours too. So we've got a bit of watching to do this week.
All right, I won't watch both.
Awesome. Well, it's been a great chat as usual.
It has. My dogs are starting to go crazy. I don't know if you can hear them.
Yeah, I was going to say hey to the dogs for me.
They
And
must be watching movies.
good, and yeah, well, I'll see you again next week.
I'm looking forward to it, mate. Take it easy.